Hello everybody, it is Coach Rebecca and I'm coming in for my brand new talk, and this week I want to talk about connecting with nature. So the blog post that you're going to read talks about why connecting with nature I feel is important, but I want to give some background history and kind of tell you why the connection with nature is so important as part of the wheel of things that I work with people on. The first being fitness, that's the foundational piece, and then connecting with nature. And so the very first time that I realized that connecting with nature was really important, one shot wonder, right? We got the dogs on the squeaky toy, we have helicopters going outside. We're connecting all the way around. We're connecting with everything. So, that's Sadie. So, the very first time that I put it together that, connecting with nature was important was whenever I started working for the Forest Service. I was a seasonal, and I was an interpretive ranger at the Mendenhall Glacier Visitor Center in Juneau, Alaska. And if you've ever been there, it is mayhem with visitors. I mean, you get hundreds and thousands of visitors every day. And they have 60 minutes to get off of the cruise ship, or to get off of the tour bus from their cruise ship, to check out the visitor center, to get their photos out at Photo Point, to go over to the salmon viewing platform and see if they can see salmon, if they're at that right time of year. And then because bears come in to fish for the salmon, they want to make sure that they see a bear, and they get everything photographed in 60 minutes. 60 minutes is not enough time to visit the Mendenhall Glacier Visitor Center. FYI, you find yourself in Juneau. Also, whenever you find someone like myself that's standing there in that fabulous uniform and wants to just give you a tidbit about why the ice is blue and plant succession, and no, you're not in a zoo, so don't walk right up to that black bear. So be respectful of the fact that we're there trying to connect you with nature. And sometimes that can be quite stressful. It's a lot of people management. It's a lot of people getting stressed because they don't want to miss their bus, or they already missed their bus, or they need to go to the bathroom before they catch their bus because they don't want to miss their bus. And it can be a little crazy, mayhem. And so whenever I was working out there, that was my first seasonal job with the Forest Service, and whenever I was working out there, there would be moments where it would be rather intense, and I would just need to step away for a minute. And so every once in a while, whenever the crowds would kind of die down and I knew I had like 5 minutes, I would step over into the woods and literally step behind a large boulder, and I would just sit there and just enjoy the greenery of the Tongass National Forest. It's a huge 16+ million acres of temperate rainforest in southeast Alaska. It's gorgeous. But whenever you got that many people coming to you and asking about their buses and the bathrooms and why the ice is blue, sometimes you just need to step away. And so I remember this one day that I stepped off into the woods. I sat behind this boulder, also known as a glacial erratic, and sat behind that rock, and something really magical happened. I was sitting there and I was all in my head, and I was just breathing deep, and I was just enjoying the moss and the lichen and the worn trail that the bears were coming and going on whenever they were coming to and from that salmon stream. And I was just breathing deep, and it was so beautiful, and it was so peaceful. And then I started listening to how silent it was. It was so quiet. And the longer that I sat there, the more that the birds started singing, the more that the little squirrels started moving around. And then it dawned on me that whenever I had come and I had sat in that place, everything around me had paused to watch me. the human that was in their wild place. They'd all paused to see, what am I doing? Why am I there? And what am I going to do next? And then the longer that I sat there and I was just appreciating this presence of silence, the more they all went about their business. They went back to doing bird stuff, and they went back to doing squirrel stuff. And it was like literally the sound of nature got turned up. And I realized that all of a sudden in that moment, whenever nature had started going back about her business, that I was accepted as a part of that space, right? You know what I'm saying? Like whenever you walk into a large group of birds and they all flush, it's because you've disturbed their space. And so in that moment, whenever I was sitting there and all of a sudden the sounds of nature started coming back around and all these little animals started scurrying around and going about their normal business, that was the first time that I realized that whenever you move into nature, nature pauses and watches you. And then the longer that you let her know that you're just there to observe her, the more she just goes back about her business and just accepts you into her space. That is that nature connection. So I've worked, well, just about my entire professional career in a natural resource agency. And I've worked with connecting people to those, helping to create those connections. And so that is why working with people and in the wheel of like care, fitness and book club and connecting with nature and independent travel and getting my life coach certification, that's why that component is there. Is because the more that we are in this world and the more that you're just inundated with all these messages of what you should do and how you should live and, the way life should be, and you're inundated with all these images, that's a social construct for all that you should constantly be striving for, when in fact, whenever you go out and you walk around in the woods, you realize everything that you are is exactly as nature intended you to be, is exactly perfection. And there are so many beautiful things that happen whenever you're out in nature that are whimsical and totally, at her pleasure, because I totally think of nature as a woman, and and she just creates this beautiful atmosphere and circumstances for us to come and enter into and enjoy. And so that's why connecting with nature is a part of the components that I work with people on, and try and bring awareness about getting out and connecting with nature. Because I work for these public lands agencies, and now more than ever, these public lands are being viewed as not as valued as they once were. So here's another thing that I like to do. There are a lot of places that I go that I know my sister will not ever see. And it's not because she doesn't want to, it's because it's a moment in time that I'm never going to, she's not physically there with me. And so I'm never going to be able to share that experience with her. And so I just want to share this one little thing, and maybe you'll dig it. So whenever I would go out and I would go on these really big hikes, and I'm talking 6 to 10 hour hiking days. And I would get up into these places where there was no trail. There was just myself and whoever I was hiking with. And there was one day in particular where a friend of mine really wanted to try and get back to this spot where he knew that, a long time ago, this glacier had carved out these canyon walls and had left this mountain right in the middle. And he really wanted to try and hike up in one day and hike up and get around that mountain that was in the middle to just get to a vantage point where he could see the remnants of that glacier at the back end of that canyon. Well, I wanted to stop and eat blueberries, and I wanted to stop and take a picture of the glow-in-the-dark moss that was in the hillside, and I wanted to stop and see all the stuff, because that's the way that I experience nature. Is I am always the one that's at the back of the pack. We go hiking together, I won't be in the front. I like to be the sweeper, and I also like it because at the back I can stop and I can take all the pictures, and if there's something really beautiful that catches my eye, I can stop and I can enjoy it. So this particular hike, we got to the point where we were like, all right, we're 4 hours into our hiking day. We've got the same 4 hours to get back out, so we're just going to stay right here. We're going to have lunch. We're going to like mow down on these berries that were huge, and we're just going to enjoy this moment. Now, the last hour of this hike in, it was very apparent that we were in brown bear country and that the brown bears in that area were very, very active. Huge scat piles. Look it up if you don't know what scat is. Huge scat piles everywhere, fresh scat piles. And the more that we walked around this little section of woods, the more that both of us realized we were being watched. So we get up to this point where this is going to be where we're going to have lunch. And one thing that I would do, knowing that my sister wasn't going to be in that space with me, is I would yell her name so that she covered all that I was seeing. I would yell her name and it would bounce around the vast open space that I was enjoying, and that's the way that I could have her there with me. So on this particular hike, I yelled her name, Tori! And I yelled it so loud, and at the exact spot that I was standing, her name echoed off of the far left canyon wall. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And 2 to 3 seconds later, it rode all the way around behind that mountain and came out the other canyon wall. So if you can imagine, if I'm a mountain and everything behind me are these real slick canyon walls, immediately behind my head is where that glacier was sitting, because whenever it carved out those walls and carved out that mountaintop, as it melted away, it melted all back to behind my head. So whenever I yelled her name, it went along this canyon wall, behind the mountaintop, and out the other canyon wall. So cool. This is why you need to connect with nature. And if you have to go without your family, there's always a way to bring them to that moment. This is why you need to protect your public lands, because that was in the Tongass National Forest, where all these different glaciers have carved out the landscape and made it so spectacularly beautiful. And that's why my day job is with the Forest Service, and why I'm doing this side gig, this amazing journey. It's not for money, it's pure passion. I want to help people get in shape so that they can get out and they can enjoy the great outdoors. I want to help them to read good books so that they can expand their mind and realize what's possible. I want you to connect with nature because it grounds you and it brings you to a place, a very healthy, sacred space. And then I want you to travel independently to these beautiful places. And I want you to sit in silence and enjoy the beauty that their magnitude can bring to your soul. All right, thank you. One shot.